Thank you so much for joining us another week for A Story to Tell. This week we have sharing with us Mr. Kevin Powell, and he'll just be going through his life story and just try to motivate us, to let us know that anything is possible, only believe. Mr. Kevin Powell, how are you doing?
I'm good, Lestine. Thank you for having me today.
Good
it's
to
a
have
pleasure
you.
to be here.
Good to have you. I am so delighted to be graced by such a presence as yours.
Oh, you're not saying.
So let's begin. We can start with your early years at Hope Valley. Let us know about that.
All right. So, Hope Valley Experimental School was the school I called my primary school. That's where I got my, basic primary education. And Hope Valley Experimental School, for those of you who don't know, is an institution that merges both students with disability with students who are able-bodied. So a classroom, a general classroom would have, multiple students who were, considered to have physical disabilities, and of course students who are able-bodied. So it was a well-integrated space, and that was where the formative years of my education came from. And as I tell people all the while, I'm very grateful for that experience because that institution, I was never made to feel as a different person. I was always made to feel a part of the society that I was in, because of the integration that was there. Teachers didn't treat us differently. Students didn't treat us differently because of that level of integration.
Before you progress more on Hope Valley, could you just elaborate a little on your disability? You have a disability. Tell us the nature of it and such, so we can appreciate where you're coming from.
All right. So I have a condition called arthrogryposis.
I won't repeat that.
Arthrogryposis congenita multiplex. It's a very long scientific name. But what it simply means, Lestine, is that I have is a condition that affects the joints and the muscles. So it impairs the growth and development of muscles and joints, especially in your legs. And so when I was born, I was told that my legs were literally folded like this because they weren't able to be developed in the womb.
Yeah.
And when you do the research on this condition, it tells you that it came as a result of limited space within my mom's uterus.
Okay.
And so because of that limited space, the joints and the muscles
could not grow
and could not be developed. So it causes, in most persons who have this condition, it causes, issues with mobility.
Yes.
And that was what had affected me. I had mobility issues, could not walk as regular people, on 2 feet. And in fact, immediately as I was born, I had to do surgery. I had to do surgery.
A corrective surgery?
Corrective, I suppose it was corrective, yes, and just surgery to kind of allow me to get some independence along the way as well. So the surgeon Golding, brilliant orthopedic surgeon who's now deceased, was the one who performed that surgery to get the legs to a state where they could, be straighter than they were at birth. And it would have begun, Lestine, like years of multiple surgeries and therapy and just various treatment to get me to a stage where I am now able to independently use a pair of crutches to walk around.
So how far back can you go in time to basically give us an idea as to when was the earliest time you understood what you were faced with?
All right, I would say that my earliest recollection that I was different started at the age of 6. And I recall this instant because I've spoken about it a lot in my various, speeches that I give to students all over and people all over. It was when my mother at age 6 said to me, it's time now for you to stop stressing out my husband. I literally remember her saying that, because at that point, at that point, my father lifted me for everywhere I wanted to go, every journey, every place we went to, I was being lifted. lifted by my father.
A 6-year-old being
A
lifted.
6-year-old
You
being
can't
lifted,
walk.
precisely. And so I remember my mother saying to me, you need to stop stressing out your husband now. And she said to me, I'm going to teach you how to walk with these pair of crutches. And she showed me the pair of crutches, and she said to me, literally, you know, you're going to fall. You're going to start, but you're going to fall. And when you fall, it's okay. Just try again. It's a process. And she showed me how to walk with them and all of that. And before you know it, you know, I was able to walk. And as she did promise, I did fall a couple of times. In fact, I think I'm still falling now sometimes when I walk. But she walked me through that process because she was showing me that, listen, you need to start becoming independent. And so that was my earliest recollection of being different.
So before the crutches, you were basically on your hands and knees?
On all fours, literally on, even after the crutches, because
sometimes you can't be bothered
precisely,
with it.
when I'm in the space of home,
Yes.
I'm on all fours, literally on all fours, walking around on all fours in my house. I did everything as a child.
Play games, hide and seek,
baseball, dandy shandy, climb mango tree, climb, you know, do everything that a normal boy would be doing at that time.
So it was now at Hope Valley, because Hope Valley probably you start at 6 thereabouts.
Yes.
That message hit home to you.
That I am different. Of course, you're seeing all these other persons now. So before going to Hope Valley, we were living in Mall Road in Waltham Park area at the time, and you know, I had none of the institutions would take me. My mother told me that she tried St. Jude's, we tried Vouch, but none of them was equipped. They would take my brother, but they wouldn't take me as a...
Because your brother doesn't have a disability.
He doesn't have a disability.
Yes.
So I would not be admitted into the institution. So my father was working at the Mona Rehabilitation Center and spoke to all he could, you know, all those he could talk to up there, and they said, all right, bring him to the Mona Rehab Center, bring him to Hope Valley Experimental. And that was where I had a chance to get an education via his intervention there at the Mona Rehab Center. So, you know, going to Hope Valley, you saw students who were able-bodied, and you saw your friends, because I was now, because of the difficulty to travel back and forth for my father, again, to be lifting me all the time, back and forth from home to school, to work. He decided to have me stay or board on the Mona Rehabilitation Center, and then he would take me home on the weekends. And so you're seeing students and friends who had varying kinds of disabilities. Some of them were even worse than my condition. You had persons who were using wheelchair, you had persons who were using crutches, you had persons who were using prosthetic legs. And so we had a mixture of persons who were there, and everybody just found themselves able to do whatever they wanted to do in that experience. So it was there that I learned all of the things that I could do as an independent child at the Mona Rehab Center, and secondarily at the Hope Valley Experimental School. So, you know, as I said before, I'm grateful for that experience at Mona Rehab, and I'm grateful for that experience at the Hope Valley Experimental School.
So even though you had a physical disability, that didn't affect you academically?
Well, I would suppose it probably helped me academically, because not being able to do much of the extra things that children will do, I was a little bit more focused on in terms of my academics. I would get in the normal trouble, get in the normal fights, get in the normal quarrels and the normal games, but for the most part, I was a pretty focused individual from very early.
Remember any of your teachers from Hope Valley?
Certainly, one of the most profound teacher that have left and is still leaving an impact on me is Miss Edwards. Miss Edwards taught me in grade 4 and she taught me in grade 5. And she was the one who has always been saying to me, you know, you can do it. You're disabled, but that should not stop you. You're good, you're smart, you're intelligent. You know, whatever you want to achieve, you can achieve it. But for the most part, there are other teachers at Hope Valley that I would say also No, were very encouraging, and again, Hope Valley was really a unit, a family unit,
Yeah.
because they looked after us,
Yes.
and they ensured that our needs were met. They ensured that we were well integrated, but of course they acknowledged that there were some differences, and so also they were facilitating in that regard as well. So yes, Miss Edwards would be the standout person. Kudos to her, and in fact she's still checking up on her students. We had a reunion last year and it was really good. So kudos to Miss Edwards. Yeah.
And in all of this, the preparation leading up to common entrance, was it more difficult than you would have expected?
Boy, I don't know. As I say, I lived a pretty normal life, you know, Lestine, in primary school. So common entrance was rigorous. We had to go to the Saturday classes, the extra classes just the same. Had to do the extra lessons after school. In fact, one of the things I recall about that experience was, my mother tell me the story all the while. I remember one Saturday evening going to Miss Edwards' Saturday class. It's the first time I'm taking bus by myself. My father had to leave work early that Saturday and said to me, well, if you go try to take the bus by yourself, you know. And I didn't even flinch at the opportunity. I said, what? All right, here's that big man now, we can take bus. And after Saturday class, I remember taking a bus from Papine to Halfway Tree, went into the KFC at Halfway Tree, bought my food. Because I was on crutches in a Lestine.
You're a real big man now.
Yeah, man.
Once you buy KFC, you're a real big man.
Once you buy KFC, you're a real big man. Buy me KFC, went on like a next bus to Halfway Tree. So from Crossroads to Halfway Tree, then from Halfway Tree now to Whitehall Avenue where I was now living. And when my mother saw me hopping on those crutches,
coming through the door
with my KFC bag, oh my gosh,
it was
a big deal. It was a big deal. It was indeed a big deal. So you know, so I went through that experience. Just like any GSAT or common entrance student at the time, preparing for this major exam. But then after the exam, waiting on my results, it was my last surgery. Now I was about 11 years old at the time, and this was the last surgery that Professor Golding said.
That's the day before the result.
That's a day. Well, that it was a period before the result.
Yes.
So I did the surgery. The last surgery I did was on my hip.
Yes.
It was a hip surgery that was supposed to align the hips now for me to walk straight and to walk better. And so I did the surgery, and then for recuperating, I had my cast on still. They had to put even a needle in my hip to keep it in place. And I was lying on the bed at the Sir John Golding Rehabilitation Center the day that the common entrance results came out. So all my friends were in Miss Edwards' class getting there. At that time, the results was now in the papers. Newspapers. Everybody searching for the name under the various schools that they had chosen. And here I was lying in the bed of affliction, as they would say, not knowing what my fate was. And I was nervous. I was still in pain. I was still recuperating. And then I saw, I think I heard my father before I saw him, just dancing on the ward of Mona Rehabilitation. I said, chop it, my youth. Calabar, you're gone. And that was one of the most fulfilling and exciting experiences for me. Lying on the bed, in pain, just recovering from surgery, but having heard brilliant news that I had gotten the school of my choice.
That was good.
And that made it even better for me. And I couldn't wait to come out of the bed and to just start summer school and all of that.
So you're now at Calabar, you're at big school.
Now at Calabar, now at big school, now at high school. But things kind of took a turn for the worse at that point, I would say, because I believe I was severely impaired by that surgery. I share the experience all the time. Before that surgery, you know, Lestine, as I told you, I had the experience of walking and going to KFC and doing all the run up and down on the crutches. But this time, I think that surgery slowed down my progress because I had to go back through therapy, learn how to reuse the crutch and to walk with it again. And So at this time now at Calabar, entering summer school at Calabar, I had to use a wheelchair. My father got me a wheelchair. And because the thinking was, all right, it's a bigger institution, you have to move from class to class, you have just done surgery, don't pressure yourself too much. And I had to use wheelchair for the first 5 years of Calabar, I had to use wheelchair. But Calabar was an awesome experience. You know, as I entered summer school, I literally fit into place. It was difficult at first because now I am moving from an environment where I'm seeing people who are like me, which is Hope Valley Experimental.
To you being a standout.
To me being a standout. I'm now this one person in the wilderness now of other boys at Calabar who were able-bodied. And so at that point you start to fret and wonder, wow, will I be accepted? Will I make friends? How will I cope in this new environment? But little did I know that Calabar had always have a history of facilitating and accommodating students with special needs, because there are quite a few blind students who were before my time that I didn't even know about, who attended Calabar, and even those who came after me. And there were other persons with disabilities who attended Calabar after my time. But that was stood out for me, was that as I entered the gates of Calabar and I settled into my class, and this was summer school now, you know, I found it very easy to make friends. My brethren and friends at Calabar would just rally around, assisting to push me up and down the place and just to get accustomed. And it was really a good experience in summer school. Regular school system now in September, you start first form, you know, you go through the works. I tell people all the while, I again was never made to feel different at Calabar. In fact, I tried as best as I could to be a normal young man at Calabar. So as I entered my classroom, I literally would park my wheelchair and jump out of my chair into a regular seat, and literally I did not know where my wheelchair went after that, because my brethren them and friends took it, run taxi with it, they went down the block of the first farm and did everything. In fact, my father scolded me on quite a few occasions to say to me, them have foot, you know.
And you have your
foot that. So you need to take care of your things, right? But yeah, that was the nature of the experience there, though. I was well integrated, and the support at Calabar was there. The support was there. I did everything again I could get myself involved in. So, you know, Calabar is has a very rich sporting tradition. So, you know, I saw that I went, and one of the first games or sports that I was interested in at Calabar was badminton. Yeah, so picture me going to badminton training in my wheelchair. Bought my first racket, bought my first shuttle, and went into badminton training to do badminton.
So you got yourself involved in the badminton club, bought your shuttle, bought your racket, and just went all in.
Definitely. I mean, I was, as I said, I was very much interested in that game, so I started. I don't think I had gone too far in it, but I really got myself involved in badminton when I just came to Calabar. But yeah, I lived a pretty normal life, you know. I mean, you had those experiences where you're getting your quarrels and you're getting your jabs, but on the most part, it was a pretty decent experience. You know, one I would not trade. I mean, I selected 3 schools, I remember, and Calabar was my first choice. Meadowbrook and Arden were my other choices. And the Lord knew why Calabar was the place that I had to be. Because after I did my post-common entrance research, I realized that Arden High School and Meadowbrook High School could not accommodate me with a wheelchair.
And they had upstairs.
Because the classes were upstairs, and Calabar was very accessible both in terms of, you know, me getting to the classes, but later on I would have found out that it would have been accessible even to get to school at that point. So you know, that was a blessing that the Lord really stored up for me, and I'm grateful that I went there and met the people I did when I when I attended Calabar. So I had a pretty normal experience. did much of what, you know, a normal teenager would be doing at high school. Got myself involved in various clubs. I was involved in a drama club. I was involved with ISCF, heavily involved with ISCF, and of course I started my own singing group, singing group, Take 5, big up on yourself, me Take 5 people.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, at Calabar. So I really lived a very fulfilling.
So Kevin, you went to all champs and them things?
You know, I didn't go to champs until after Calabar.
Really?
Because at that point, still, you know, I was still a pretty sheltered child.
Yes, yes.
You know, outside of going to school and church and yard. Didn't really go many places after that. But I went to champs after. My first stadium experience was really after Calabar when I started UWI and you know, turned big man, literally. Yes. But yeah, so had a pretty normal experience. Did my CXCs and was successful in my CXCs. I was always strong in languages, and I was always strong in English and literature. So I excelled in the arts, in the humanities.
Could it be that a particular teacher could influence you in that way?
Oh, certainly. So I had a teacher, my English and literatures in English teacher, from second form straight to fifth form, was a lady called Mrs. Fox. Mrs. Fox was just the bomb. She was more than a teacher. She was a mother, she was a mentor, she was a friend to all of us, but specifically to me. She was a Christian, so of course every morning she would be instilling the Christian values in the boys, and I was just there for us. So every English class would turn into a mentorship session. Every English class would turn into a little, you know, pep talk of one sort or the other. So she has left that impact, but her teaching style, the way she was just involved in the lives of her students was something that I emulated, and I continue to emulate even being in education today. So Mrs. Fox definitely is a person I would say has left an indelible mark on my life, both as a student and even now as a professional. So I excelled in the humanities at CXC, and then earned a place in sixth form. Now, sixth form now became a different kind of challenge now, Lestine, because that was the place where access was going to be a challenge for me at Calabar now, because Calabar sixth form was on the second floor of a 3-story building. So now I had to make a decision to get rid of the wheelchair. I really, and at that point in my life now, I'm in fifth form. I think probably 16 or 17 at the time. I was literally tired of the wheelchair because I wasn't accustomed to it in my early years, right? And only used it at Calabar, really, throughout my first form to fifth form journey. So now I'm in sixth form. I had to actually go to the principal and say, how am I going to get up these stairs? And you know, people who were in the student body were lobbying for them to build an elevator.
Oh my God.
And stuff. And it came to the point where the principal, you know, was going to tell my mother, well, if this is going to be a challenge, perhaps you can have to find somewhere else. And I said, nope, I am not going to any other high school than Calabar for sixth form. And so I said, you know, I think it's time for me to return to the crutches, on a full-time basis. And so I did that, and I journeyed up the stairs, down the stairs, up the stairs, down the stairs seamlessly. It was like nothing happened. And so I was able to go to sixth form with using the crutches. And sixth form again was just a lovely experience. I said to myself, now, okay, it's time now to leave a mark on Calabar in sixth form. So I signed up to I was nominated rather to be the student council president. Because of course at this time now, I had a flair for talking. I was into this, politics and representation and people's rights and all of these things. So I used that, and my fellow colleagues saw that kind of strength and said, you'd make a good advocate for students. And so I, was nominated for student council president and voted in as the student council president for Calabar in that year. So that was where I left my mark as being a part of that body who represented the school. And it was at sixth form too that I said, all right, sixth form is the time, Lestine, where people, young men age 17 and age 18 are looking to get their driver's license, right?
Yes.
So of course, Kevin Powell shall not be outdone.
Not at all.
Because if everybody going for them license, I don't see why I mustn't go for mine too, right?
Yes.
So of course, I decided now, okay, I need to get my driver's license because, you know, car make for me to me can drive. So went to, you know, Keys driving school and did the whole jazz. But then my first encounter now with, I suppose, perception and discrimination that I'm supposed to be limited to what I can do took place while I signed up for that driving school. So here I am going to this institute, this driving school now, and instructor took forever to come and give me some attention. People came after me. They got some attention. They got their lessons, and the lessons ended. And the man took 1 hour because I suppose he was matzing up. How am I going to teach this gentleman to drive? And he came eventually, and he had me in the parking lot round and round and round. And I had to declare to him, I am ready now to go on the road, right? And that was when he decided to, you know, go on the road. And like unlike other drivers, though, Lestine, I have to drive with my left leg. Yes, I drive an automatic vehicle. Normal drivers drive with the right leg. Kevin Powell used his left leg for drive. Yeah, and it's been going years now. I've never had an accident. Praise the Lord. Thank you, Jesus. But yeah, so that was like another opportunity for me to show that whatever I wanted, I was going to get it. I was going to get it.
You're on your crutches, but yet you decided to go for your driver's license, and you were
anything
successful.
You want to do, you know, whatever your condition, it should never be a limitation. If your mind is working properly, and if your mind says to you, you can do it, then all it takes is just the willpower to go out and get it done.
So after sixth form, you went and worked for
So after sixth form now, I went and I worked at, I got a summer job at the Ministry of Labor and Social Security on North Street. And I was working, started summer job, and they kept me for 2 years after that. And I was working for 2 years, and again the struggles came. I had to take the government bus, the Bloomfield government bus, from Whitehall Avenue where I was living, and go downtown, and then walk from North Street, from Cleaner Company, all the way down. And in the evenings I'd have to walk from Cleaner Company all the way up to Duke Street, just to get to
East Street was a one-way
down. Right, to get on the public transportation system. And I had to do that for 2 years, every evening, meticulously. You know, sometimes the Lord will, you know, would have somebody drop me out there, but for the most part, you know, I had to struggle along to get that done. So again, a lot of people would say, you know, would take that for granted. You walking from point A to point B, you don't think about that. For me though, I had to always be strategizing how I'm going to be moving from point A to point B, just to get what I wanted to get in life.
Because it takes a lot of effort.
It takes a lot of effort. It's painful. You know, a lot of times I have to literally, in my mind, map out where I'm going and map out the rest stops, because I knew that within a certain distance I was going to be tired. I was going to feel pain in my back, my legs would begin to give way, and the sweat and just the excruciating experience of having to walk from point A to point B was a limitation that I had to encounter throughout this journey called life. But once you strategize, you know, you get it sorted out.
So after the 2 years at the ministry, you went on to UA.
So after 2 years at the ministry, I said, nope, staying here at the ministry will not allow me to be the person I want to be in life. Self-sufficient, educated, self-actualized. At this point, I knew I wanted to be in education. I knew I wanted to teach. I knew I wanted to be, my lifelong goal was to be a teacher, to be an educator, to be a college professor. So I couldn't start the ministry and get that accomplished. So in 2001, I applied to UWI, and I was accepted to UWI to study literatures in English. And that was where now the experience of being fully independent now, fully on your own. I had no mother and father, because let me back up the story now, Lestine. At Calabar, I tell you, I had depended so much on my father. My father was a tower of strength at Calabar. Between 4th and 5th form, my father lost his job at the Mona Rehab where he was working. And so he wasn't able now to provide the taxi fare for me every single day to go the back and forth. But he saw the value, and he knew the value of education, and he said this would not have stopped me from going to school. So every morning and every day, 5 days a week, religiously, in the morning my father would push me from Whitehall Avenue onto Red Hills Road to Calabar High School, and in the evening at 2:30, when the sun is ripe, when the sun is at its hottest, my father would take me back, push me literally from Calabar up to Red Hills Road onto Whitehall Avenue, and he would not flinch, he would not murmur. I didn't hear any ounce of complaint from the man, because he knew that this was his responsibility, and he just did it, and I respect and love him for that. But here at UWI now, different kettle of fish. I am on my own, I'm an adult now, I need to do this. And so if anybody knows UWI is a very big campus. The campus big, right? And of course, all your classes are not situated in one location. You're traveling between classes, in order to for you not to be late for one class and all of that. You have to go between campuses and sections of the campus. So UWI was where I learned the value of strategizing to really get what you want, just to and strategizing, not even just to study,
plan your route,
just planning my route, where am I going to walk. So I have a class in O2 over arts faculty, and then right after my 10 o'clock class I have to go to a class at SSLT over by SOSI, or IFLT over by science department. And so I had to plan out and map out the routes so strategically, give myself sufficient time to get those rest stops going, to and reach in time for tutorials and for lecture series. So that was where I got my first drench of kind of, okay, this really is rough. And again, now at this point now, after being on my own now, battling public transportation, because again, my father and mother didn't have it financially to provide vehicles to take me up and down the place, right? So I had to go through the route of public transportation. And I remember one evening at UWI, can't forget it, I was sitting at the bus stop at Mary C. Cole Hall. It was a 5 o'clock class in the evening. The class had ended at about 6 in the evening, and it was raining Lestine. Well, it had just started to rain. And I was sitting at the bus stop and I could not move. The persons who were at the bus stop with me, they left to seek shelter. I could not move because the rains came down so suddenly. And I sat there, drenched in rain, and I literally cried. I said, Lord, what is this on me? Why? And that was my first point in my life where I questioned. Why you? Why me?
Why you had to be born like this?
Why did I have to be born like this? Prior to that, as I said, I had the support. At Mona Rehab, I had the support. At Hope Valley, I had the support. At Calabar, I had the support. I'm at UWI now, full-fledged independence. And I think I literally broke at that point, where I said, why me? Because it was such a struggle to get this degree. Not educationally, not even financially, because God bless my father, again, he was there to see me through that, but just the struggle of moving about, getting from place to place, location to location, in order to fulfill this objective of mine.
Things regular persons would take for granted.
Things regular people would take for granted.
It was a struggle for you.
It was a struggle for me. And so I cried. Another point where I broke was another evening after leaving school, jumped on a taxi to Half a Tree. Friday evening, I think it was, Friday evening traffic, crazy, crowd crazy, everybody want to reach home. Here I was in Half a Tree, waiting hours for a vehicle to take me to Whitehall Avenue. Everybody was, waiting as well. And here comes this cab, and I was literally making my way to go in the cab.
And you're on your crutches?
On my crutches, with the bag on my back, and people literally pushed me. People, in the mad rush to get to an empty cab at the time, people literally pushed me out of the way, and I had to again, just dress back, allow them to go in and wait on another taxi. And that was one of the experiences that I said, boy, God, where I do? You know, why me? That was one of my why me experiences. And that's why I said to people, you know, everything start with that act of desperation, but you always use it to propel you to get what you want. Because I said, one of the things I had said at that point where I was drenched in the rain in Oklesteen was, so help me God, when I'm finished my degree, I have to get a car.
Vehicle. Yeah, because
have
you
to
can't
get a
be
vehicle.
going through this.
I cannot continue living in Jamaica under these circumstances. So that was one of the things I said I had to get in my life, and God helped me to get a vehicle right after I finished UWI and I did my first job. So UWI was a struggle in that regard. It got better though in my final year. In my final year as a student at UWI, I lived on Taylor Hall, so the commute back and forth was not as difficult as it was in my first 2 years at UWI.
So you went through UA, the last year you stayed on Taylor Hall, and that was a successful...
Yeah, I graduated from UWI with my undergraduate degree, you know, with honors, and very good times at UWI. And right after UWI now, it's time to go look a job, right? It's time to go work. And so I did a mock interview, the career and placement section at the UWI Student Affairs Office. Was doing some mock interviews at the time, which, you know, with final year students who were going to graduate. And UCC, University of the Commonwealth Caribbean, University College of the Caribbean at the time, they sent some recruiting officers, HR individuals, to come and do mock interviews with final year students. And I was one of those students who was interviewed. And that was perhaps in the June of that year, of 2004. And by August 2004, I got the call to come to UCC to start lecturing at UCC.
Just like that?
Just like that. I mean, it blew my mind. And so in 2004, I started lecturing part-time. I was lecturing part-time at UWI, and I was also lecturing part-time. I had gotten a job too part-time at the pre-university school by UWI Mona campus. So here I was teaching these at these two different institutions, and started now to hone my own. I was actually living out my dream, because anybody who knows me from a very early age, I was very interested in teaching and in education. In fact, when I was living at Victoria Courts Apartments, where I spent most of my childhood years, I would usually have classes with the kids in the community. Here I was also a child, having extra classes with students, with children in my own age group and even older than I am, teaching them and giving them extra classes. So I always knew that teaching was a calling for me.
And you were lecturing in English?
And I'm lecturing in English, I was lecturing in writing, communication, public speaking, all the communication kind of courses. I was doing those courses at UCC and also at pre-university school. And so I started to, you know, get into my groove, really, my rhythm. And of course, I have students from all over. It's probably a 14, 15 years of teaching now that I've raked up. And
are you still at that job now?
I'm still at UCC. I'm full-time at UCC. I started full-time at UCC in 2007. Worked my way up from being a full-time lecturer to a head of department. Now I'm actually the director of student affairs.
What are you saying?
At UCC, yes.
What?
And so I have kind of put down the teaching for a little bit, and I'm more in educational administration, where I look about the needs of students as it relates to extracurricular activities, student governance, anything that has to do with the welfare and the well-being of college, the students at the college, would be something that I'm responsible for.
And this was like a snapshot that you got a taste from Calabar.
From Calabar days, so my advocacy for student from the student council, definitely. Very good, very good. I didn't even make the connection until now. Let's 16. Very good. But yes, so I was able to. I'm now in that post at UCC, and I think education is where I want to spend the rest of my professional journey. I'm into educational administration now, so I think that is where I really am finding my niche now, and I'm doing very well in that. But yes, so I professionally, so I told you, remember I told you I had made a commitment to myself that as soon as I was through with UWI, I was going. The first major thing I did was to buy a vehicle.
Yes.
I bought my car. My first car was I bought it in 2005, a 1994 B30 Nissan Sunny. Yeah.
Classic.
Classic. It gave me trouble, shut off. I wrote him a couple of times, but trust me, it was the most heavenly thing ever, because no
commute was much
easier. I didn't have to battle the bus system in Jamaica. I didn't have to battle the taxi drivers and the commuters who pushing me out of the road and pushing me out of the way to get to a taxi.
And you never have to be at the bus shed.
And I never had to be at the bus shed now, crying and drenched with rain.
Yes.
I had now a vehicle of my own to go wherever I wanted to. And with that vehicle, I remember I told my mother sometime after I got the car that I was going to take a trip now to St. Elizabeth. It was the first time I am driving such a long distance. And my mother was like, "You're sure you can do it?" And I said, "Yeah, I mean, who you talk to me? And me, I talk to you, remember, Yes. And so I did that, and as I said, I've been driving since that time without any accident, without any kind of hiccups, and that has been my life in terms of the commute. And so I still have to plan out my routes. I still have to plan out the thing, but it's not so difficult anymore, because I know I just move from my car to wherever I want to go, from wherever I am located to my car to my yard, and I'm good again.
And after the first 2 years at UCC, you did your master's.
So of course, you're in an educational institution. Upward mobility. You have to continuous learning is the order of the day.
Yes.
So of course, I started the masters in English at UWI at about, I think, 2010 or 2012 rather. I'd started that and then did that, and it was again the experience got a little better because at this point now I'm driving, I'm working. The only challenge was now just kind of managing working and studying, the regular work and study kind of vibe. Balancing that. No Lestine family came in the picture because at that point...
that part come in and you don't even tell me.
Well, so in 2010...
So in all of this you have eyes and ladies and
in all of this now, so yes, I'm uplifting myself and upgrading myself professionally, educationally. I said, no, in 2010 it was time to settle down.
No more run around.
No more or walk around.
Walk around, yes.
Right? So in 2009 I got married.
Tell us how you met your wife.
I met my wife. You know who my wife is, right?
I have an idea.
Yeah, an idea.
Is she Marsha?
She's Marsha.
Yes. I've heard a lot of good things about her.
Then Marsha Renee Lazarus, and I turned her into a Powell.
Yes.
Big up yourself, Marsha. So in 2008, I was attending Pentab and singing on the choir, and before I joined the choir at Pentab, I always saw this young lady singing. And as I said to her when I was courting her, is the first person ever that I see singing and smiling at the same time. Yes. I was like, oh, you do that? Oh, you sing and smile at the same time, right?
Special talent.
That took a special talent and gift.
Yes.
But I was endeared to that and I was attracted to that. And so she caught my eyes.
The smile
caught my eyes, man. And so she was singing alto. And then I spoke to Pastor. I said, Pastor, I need to join the choir. And of course, I'm a tenor.
Yes.
She's an alto. And, we were close to each other. You know what I mean? And that was my opportunity now to, to give her a talk, as they would say.
So, Kevin, you didn't feel like, I wonder if I am good enough for...
Certainly, certainly I had my reservation because, a nice girl like this, nice young lady, cream of the crop, what's she going to do with a guy like me, right? But of course, a guy like me too is a man of words. So I
Yes.
knew that, talking to her would not
Yeah.
have been a challenge.
So you're pretty confident.
So I was pretty confident, but of course still a little nervous and anxious whether or not she would accept me and whether or not she would think that this would reach anywhere and all of
Because
that.
I wouldn't read. Most persons would think that just the thought of approaching somebody for a relationship, you might get rejected and
Precise.
all of those things.
Under normal circumstances,
Yes.
you're going to have that fear. Much more now. I have a challenge. I have a disability, and of course, society doesn't really see this as a norm, right?
Yes.
And society's expectation is that I suppose you must marry your kind.
Yes.
And so I was anxious. I was nervous. But little did I know, Lestine, that the girl eyes me too.
What you're not
Yeah, man,
saying?
eyes me. And so we spoke and we got to know each other. And as the rest they say is history. I drive to Portmore every day of the week. She was living in Portmore at the time. I was living in Kingston, and I'd have to pay toll every evening to drop her home and to go look for her. You see,
Such love.
such love, such
wondrous
wondrous love, such
Yes,
wondrous
yes.
love.
Yes.
Right? And so in 2009, we decided that we're going to take our relationship to a different level, and we got married in December of 2009. So yes, and of course that also came with its own fair share of challenges, because of course you had those persons, again, society has its own perception, but you had those persons who were discouraging her from getting married to me and all the works. And you heard the backstories.
Like what they would say.
Boy, can he manage to be married to you? You know what I mean? What do you mean manage to be married to you? What do you mean by that? They were wondering about how, the relationship would work, and how, I suppose, how the intimacy would work and all of that. But God,
They were very concerned.
They were very concerned that
Yes.
this young woman would not be fulfilled, I suppose, intimately. But Jesus breaks every fetter and he sets the captives free.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen. And I'll say no more on that. But yes, and then 2 months after that, couple months after that, my wife was pregnant. And
How
I
did
suppose,
that happen?
I don't know, Lestine. Your mother didn't teach you the bird and the bee story.
No, but people would look on you and they have certain misconceptions, as they say, but everything is normal, you just cannot walk.
I just cannot walk.
Everything is normal.
Everything is normal. Brain at work and everything else at work. Everything else at work.
So you are now married.
Now married, I have a child on the way, and I'm studying as well. I'm doing my master's, so the challenge was there. In fact, I had to postpone the postgraduate work a couple of times before I finally pushed through and channeled through to finish that. And I'm now actually on the cusp of completing another master's. I'm doing an MBA now, and executive master's in business administration with the Commonwealth of Learning. I'm at UCC, at the very college I teach, because I want to diversify my skill sets in other areas, to do some consultancy work as well. So I'm doing that. Have a family, have 2 wonderful girls, that I am in charge of, and of course my wife, and that's a full-time job. And I'm doing all of that at the same time, still trying to manage through the journey on crutches and walking and just living my life and staying in my lane, as it were, using the strengths and the talents and the gifts that God has given to me to maximize my potential and my purpose here on earth. So yes, God had it that my Carice was born in December of 2010, and of course that put some of the naysayers to rest, So yes. So I have a family, and yeah, life is pretty good at the moment. I can't complain. God has been good, and what I do now is I do a lot of motivational speeches.
I can imagine.
I'm called very often to go to various institutions, most of which are at the high school level. The students there who need motivation. There are so many people, so many students who are just entrapped by their circumstance who need that extra inspiration. And I said to them, if I can give you an ounce of inspiration, then that's my task. If that is my purpose on earth, then I will gladly take that as my responsibility to share with somebody, to let them know that regardless of their circumstance, regardless of whatever life throws, because ultimately, if we believe that all things work together for good, if we believe that God is in full control and He's sovereign in our lives, then of course we have to take the good with the bad, and we have to find a way to say, okay, what does this challenge, what does this situation in my life mean? How can I give God the glory out of it? And I that was just all my mantra. There must be a way in which my life brings glory to God, and my disability, my physical challenge serves a purpose. And it is in the last days of my life, Lestine, at this point in my life rather, that I am seeing the purpose for the struggles that I have gone through, for the disappointments, for the self-esteem issues that I used to have. I'm seeing the reason and the purpose in all of that now, because as I said, I go around and I inspire and I seek to motivate people that regardless of whatever they're going through, life has to be lived just the same. You can maximize your potential using whatever talents God has given you. So I could talk. God gave me the gift of speech, the gift of writing, the gift of performance. I could sing. All of those things I use to bring glory to Him, to motivate, to inspire, to let people know that you are eating the banana. As my mother always tells me the story of the man who said he was hungry, had the last banana. He went up in the tree, said he's going to eat the banana and just jump out of the tree and kill himself. Threw the banana skin down, and here comes another man taking up the banana skin and eating it. There's always somebody who's in a worse situation than you. And so you have to always be positive and just work with the hand that you're dealt and maximize your purpose and objective in life. And that has been my mantra. And God has been good, and I've been reaching and just, making sure that whatever I do, my family's taken care of. I work hard to provide for them, and I do everything else just to motivate and inspire somebody who needs that level of motivation.
Kevin, thank you so much for this. It has really inspired me, and I am very sure that it will inspire other persons as well.
Thank you. That is the hope, and that is the objective, and I hope that somebody listening will certainly be inspired by this story.
Okay. Thank you all for joining us another week for another episode of A Story to Tell. Today was very inspiring, I must say, and I'm encouraging you all, if you have not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, click subscribe. Also click the notification bell that you'll be notified of all the videos that we produce, because YouTube is not gonna let you know if you don't click that little bell. Alright, so click the little bell, you'll be notified of all the videos that we produce, and also like our Facebook page. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a blessed week.